When I saw that scene, I didn't read it as a romantic gesture at all. And then I went on social media and went, what is happening? Did people watch a different show?
Yeah, it was a pretty good fucking episode of Rings of Power.
Really?
That's putting it lightly, yes.
This is probably the best episode of the show so far.
For sure.
It is not only that, I think this is one of the best battle episodes of any TV show I've ever seen. Out of the TV shows that have had battle scenes.
Yeah. Well, I think...
Yeah, I mean, the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones comes close. But while I was watching this, I got kind of the same feeling I felt while watching the Battle of Helm's Deep in the movies. Except it was a bit grimmer. It was far less heroic and
yeah, that's one thing that I noticed is, that obviously, like, because if they're going with was it Christopher Tolkien's preferred reading of the stuff, is it like was it Christopher, is that his name?
Yes, his son, yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, there's no real moments of just like, I mean, there are heroic moments, but it's not like played up as like some, like, I don't know, almost otherworldly, kind of a act of a Christ figure kind of thing. Yeah, it's and there's like immediately a consequence, I think, to almost every single example of it. Like, trying to think of any. I would need to watch it again, but I know I was thinking of something during watching it, like Arondir jumping on the fucking the troll or whatever, and man, that troll was fucking cool.
That troll was awesome.
Yeah. That troll was awesome.
They did a really, really good job with that, and like, just stepping on like 3 dudes at once and just like smushing them and shit.
I love so there's so much to love about this episode, really. I think it plays on the tension that we know it's going to fail really well. Like, because even if you don't know the Silmarillion, and I would not blame you for not knowing it because it's a dense read. But also, like, because we know the story of Lord of the Rings, we know that this doesn't go well.
Well, so that was what I was going to say about it, is that it does what a prequel... If prequels obviously have the challenging, sometimes impossible task of making you care about the stakes of something that you already know how it's going to turn out. But what they can do, and sometimes they pull off, different prequels have done this, is at least while you're watching it, they can kind of make you forget a little bit. Like, you're so focused on what's going on that, like, you kind of don't remember. Like, I didn't remember for a good bit of the episode that, this is literally the battle where the dwarves don't show up. This is where fucking relations between dwarves and elves was fucking shattered. And I was like, oh my god, when they looked to the fucking hill, he's like, oh, the dwarves are coming. It's just like one dude on a horse.
Oh, he's all shot up. Yeah,
it's like, oh no, they're not coming. Jesus Christ!
It's the character. The character interactions get you into the scene so well, or the story so well, that you don't remember that we know what's going to happen, or it's how bad is it going to be for our characters when it happens. It's not that, like, oh, is Celebrimbor's city going to be saved? It's what's going to happen to Celebrimbor when this goes all kinds of tits up on him.
Yeah,
and they also used the Jackson films against us. I don't know if you noticed that, but like, literally the moment where they like look up to the hill,
same shot, like shot for shot.
Yep, and it's like, oh, your mind goes to was it Rohan showing up?
Yep,
or whatever, and it's like, oh, look, oh no,
yeah, right. And I think part of the effective tension for me is that Tolkien outside of the book The Lord of the Rings, which is the only thing the show has the actual rights to,
right? But
in the wider lore, the details of things like this, Tolkien constantly retcons. So you're never sure, or at least I'm never sure, which version of the details of the story the show is going to go for. Like, there's one version of the Fall of Eregion in which Sauron chases... Eregion always falls, but Sauron chases the Elven army, and the only thing that saves them is that the dwarves do show up at the last minute at Sauron's rear, and he has to turn and face them. And then in another version of the story, that doesn't happen, but some of the elves are still able to escape through Khazad-dûm, but Elrond isn't part of that faction. He goes to another place.
Right.
And so for me, watching the end of the episode, watching Elrond begin to lose faith in dwarves and men was like heartbreaking.
Well, I mean, this was losing faith in dwarves, and then we my girlfriend said we were watching it. She was like, "Oh, this is where he just lost faith in people," and I was like, "Well, he hasn't lost all of it yet." But when Isildur make a little trip, he definitely loses the grip of it then.
Yeah,
he's got a hard road.
And because it was heartbreaking to watch, even though sort of it's coming, because they built up that friendship so much in the first season. That was the one aspect of the show that even people who hate the show say that they liked about it, was the relationship between Durin and Elrond. And now you see why they focused on that and built it up so much, because the emotional payoff of that betrayal hits all the harder.
Well, it's so sad because it's not even Durin, it's his dad.
But Elrond doesn't know that.
Doesn't know that, right? It's how could he? But we know that makes it sadder, right? Is that that we know what's going on, that we have the omniscient view that way.
Yeah. And
the characters don't, because Durin is I have to save Khazad-dûm from my dad unleashing literal hell on us. I can't go. And Elrond is my friend has left me to die.
Yeah. And Elrond's entire plan, the entire Elven battle plan, depended on the dwarves showing up.
Yep. Yeah, it's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know about you guys. I'm starting to think this Anatar guy, he might have some bad ideas going on.
He's no good. He's a naughty boy.
But he does it well.
He's really good at being bad.
The amount of people... This show is clearing the board of non-canon characters really quickly.
I'm kind of wondering if we're going to get 5 seasons of this, if we're going to kind of have waves of non-canon characters come and go. That as their role in the story concludes, they can shuffle them off.
Yeah, that's sort of when I read some of the anti-fan commentary on the show of what they think the show should be doing instead of what it is doing.
Yeah,
it sounds a lot like that. They seem to want every season is centuries after the previous one, and an entirely new cast of characters turns up. Except for the elves, who are, timeless and always there.
So an anthology, basically, they want.
Yeah, which I guess could work, but that's
work.
not.
But
that doesn't.
Go ahead.
I think this is a better choice because one of the TV shows, the success of a TV show depends on connecting with a particular character and following that character's story through the entire series.
Right.
Which you could do.
Not
with
everybody's.
elves. But
you can, but not everybody's going to like elves.
Right.
So, I mean, I have to assume that choosing the rings of power and the creation of them, everything around that was done with a specific goal. Part of the season, I'm thinking, man, we're about to get the 9 rings, and then that's basically it. Other than the ones, that's all that's left, and there's still 3 more seasons. What is the rest of this going to be about if this is literally called the Rings of Power? But I'm sure that they have some, framework for the 5 seasons.
I would imagine if this is sort of the pace the show is going at, is that season 5 we are gonna have Isildur take Sauron's hand, not in marriage but in violence.
Hey, you never know. He used to retcon this thing all the time.
If I had to guess, I would say that next season will be mostly the rise of the Nazgul. And then the 4th season will be the fall of Numenor.
Yeah.
And the 5th season will be the War of the Last Alliance, which is where at the end Sauron is defeated and Isildur ends up with the One Ring and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear they're making sure that we follow Isildur. So that's going to be fucking tragic too. I mean, this show's going to fuck us up quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read an article today that writers who previously worked on The Crown have been hired to work on season 3 of Rings of Power. Just
some court drama, political intrigue stuff of that variety.
Well, just to drive the point home that the show is not going anywhere, folks.
No,
they're already working on season 3, but this episode, I was enthralled by this episode. So much happened in it, and so many things surprised me that, I'm worried about Arondir now. We didn't see him die,
No.
We saw him fall, but we didn't see him die.
Right.
But the pace at which they killed off a bunch of other new characters or non-canon characters this season is really overwhelming a bit.
It's a lot.
Can we pour one out for Murdanya? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And she died thinking that Celebrimbor killed her too. That was the saddest part of it.
I do love that and I like how Adar explains oh no, all the elves in there, they're already dead. You just don't know it yet. They don't know it yet, but they're under Sauron's shadow. They're under his power, and there's nothing you can do to save them. And I think the show wants us to think that's hyperbole, so that they can show us, oh no, Adar is absolutely telling the truth. The man does not lie. He's a bastard and kind of an idiot, but he does not lie.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of which, I think we have a clearer picture of what his fate is going to be. I think they're setting him up to be killed by the orcs.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. There was that moment toward the end of the episode when it was they kind of hesitated before following his order, kind of thing, and it's because he's just assuming he's he's got his ideals and shit. And his ideal is that we would rather die than fucking and some of these orcs are just I don't know about that, man. I kind of don't know if I agree with you on that.
Right. And it's one of those things that because Adar is one of the original Arups, he knows better, but he doesn't have the empathy to know that his charges don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is that, speaking of empathy, the payoff of kind of, lack of a better word, humanizing these orcs earlier in the season, started to see that. There's the whole extended kind of little sequence there where it's they're just fucking victims of a war.
Right.
There's mangled bodies and everything, and it's they're burning their dead, and it's just oh, okay, yeah, I kind of see where this is, why the reason that they did that. I mean, I guess I kind of understood originally, but really became clear now that that's where it's going, is we're gonna have to understand why they choose to do what they're gonna choose to do.
Right. That that Adar does not have the communication skills and empathy to understand that his people don't understand why he's so singularly focused. So they don't understand it. He doesn't know to tell them.
Yeah.
He doesn't know to make it clearer.
To anybody that thinks it's bad writing, no, motherfucker, this is fucking good writing. The fact that they applied any kind of humanistic kind of lens to the orcs is specifically so it's not a nonsense choice whenever it happens.
Yeah, whenever they abandoned Adar, it will be because he did not explain to them why. Because he has been shown as a person who has this long, he's got the mix of the elven longevity and that long sight with the orcish lack of empathy, and it creates a cruel person who can't see to work together very well and to share all of his information with his allies.
But what I mean specifically is showing that family earlier in the season. It's they're making these. You're going to make a choice based on things like that. These are they want to survive.
Right.
They may be cool with fighting for somebody or whatever, going after Sauron, but at the end of the day, there's going to be some of these orcs that just hey man, we just want to live.
Because figure they fought under Adar's banner to create a homeland.
Yep.
And they got that. And we don't know how much time has passed. But not a lot of time has passed. And he has led them to a war in which a lot of them have died.
And it's not clear to them what the goal of that war is, really.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't know why. Right. He's led them to war, and we need to destroy Eregion to stop Sauron. Well, make it make sense. And Adar is you will listen to me because I'm just trust me on this, bro.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the people skills to know that. And it's a tragedy of errors, but they're human errors. They're errors we can understand. And that's the sign of good writing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think one of two things will happen to him. He's going to be killed by the orcs for that reason. Or he's going to put on Nenya, the ring he got, Galadriel's ring, thinking that he can use it as a weapon of war, and it will end up doing something like healing him and making him a pure elf again.
Oh
my God.
Or something like that. And then, which will be a great way to illustrate to viewers of the show, especially those who aren't steeped in the lore, that the elven rings can be trusted, at least before the One Ring is created.
Right.
That they are qualitatively different from the 7 and the 9.
Right.
Right. So But either way, I think we won't see Adar after season 3. After season 2, I mean, after this season.
Yeah, I think he is not long for this world.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. Maybe I missed the context or something. What did Celebrimbor do with his? Why did he do that to his fucking thumb?
To get out of the shackles.
Oh, I see.
Which I didn't quite buy, because he's surrounded by tools.
Right.
Yeah, like that thing he cut his thumb off with
could have
probably have cut through the chains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I know what he is trying to do. It is weird that in a workshop full of tools, he doesn't think to just use a tool on the chain, especially because
but I mean, I guess like
narratively,
they wanted to show that he really truly was understanding of his mistake or something, and
like his desperation. It would sell his desperation if the only tool he could reach was a hatchet. But yeah, it was a little awkward.
He did use a hammer.
Yeah.
To try and break up the chains.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't had that tool right there that he used to cut his thumb off with, if like Morgan said, the only tool within reach was a hatchet, and he couldn't get to the thing that's used to cut pieces of metal,
right?
Then it would have made more sense to me. But he had the thing right there
that cuts metal.
That cuts metal. So, but you're right. The purpose of it was to sell his desperation, and how far he was willing to go to try and make up for the mistakes that he had made up to that point.
I also think it's interesting that the elves the elves of Eregion didn't trust him, but they trusted Galadriel.
Yeah.
Now, we don't get to explore much of why that is, because then Sauron has them kill each other.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking awesome.
Well, you got to remember, right? The elven, the lower ranks of the guards and stuff don't necessarily know what Gil-galad and Elrond know about Galadriel.
Right.
Or even what Celebrimbor knows, because Celebrimbor didn't really know that she had been deceived by Sauron.
Right.
Until it was too late.
Right.
Until she told him.
And that's what I was going to mention next was, even if you really just if you genuinely believe from a narrative character perspective, and it's not misogyny, all the things that these chuds love to say about Galadriel being, it's all her fault. She's so stupid and terrible, and also she's also really super badass at everything except when she's being stupid and terrible.
She'd probably agree with you.
Right, like this episode was kind of like the culmination of all that. It kind of was like she admitted it, she knows it, and then also she fucking she passed off being the wrong one to Adar. You know, he's like, I'm gonna bring my army right to Sauron. She's like, no, you stupid fuck, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, this entire season, her arc, this entire season has been about her being held accountable and suffering the consequences for her colossal failure of judgment in season 1, which is everything I think I've seen people who complain it's bad writing say that they want to happen for characters like this. And it just highlights the criticism I think I've seen DJ make of this type of criticism, where it doesn't understand that stories are told across an entire season of television, and not just you can't just take the events of a single episode and judge that as the complete story. They so much of this criticism focuses on particular moments in an episode that don't make sense yet, but probably will if they just give the story more time to play out.
Like, if you're frustrated by the fact that she had not been, kind of like paid her dues yet, that's fine. But you express that as in like, oh, she better fucking, I don't know, realize her mistakes eventually or whatever. Like, but it becomes about this external like meta judgment of the show, rather than just like engaging with the show on its terms and waiting for things to play out.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that like. I kind of get wanting an episode of a show to tell a complete story, because I think that, to give a criticism of The Acolyte, because I actually enjoyed The Acolyte, I'm one of some number of people.
Yeah, you don't want to be called racist. We get
I
it.
enjoyed it. I think it could.
I know.
Yeah,
it could have been better.
It could have been better, but I think one thing it does wrong is, because the episodes are short, and because the season is only 8 episodes, that the episodes don't end doesn't feel good.
Like, it seemed like random things happened in an episode that didn't really, there was very little satisfaction by the end of an episode. It was just like, okay.
Because I think, even when Rings of Power
with that show, with that show, I waited until all of the episodes were out, and then I just watched it all the way through.
Sure.
My experience of The Acolyte was I just watched the entire story.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it episode by episode. I can see how frustrating it would have been to do that, because a couple of those episodes didn't make much sense.
No, they ended really weird places. They feel half finished.
And I agree that each episode of even in a serialized show, each episode should be a complete story, but it should not be the entire story of the show.
Right. Like, you can't have, for a cliffhanger to have weight, you can't have every episode be a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And like, this episode ends on a cliffhanger. But we also haven't had a lot of cliffhangers. So it's okay. They're like, oh, this is the big climactic moment. All good.
Yeah, this was essentially a war movie.
Yeah. It very much enjoys being a war movie and all of the horror that entails.
Yes.
Yes, and I think it's impressive. I think it's impressive that they're able to evoke that feeling without much gore.
Yeah. It's not a bloody affair.
They definitely made sure to get one good fucking shot with Elrond just slicing an orc in half. I don't know if you just saw that, but like, it's all done in shadow, so you don't really see anything. But it's like, it was pretty clear that he split that dude in half. Well, not quite half, but.
I also like that we had like the parlay scene. I thought that was interesting. That like we're gonna do war right.
Yeah. Maybe we can work something out.
Right, because it like plays at this tension of like they're just like Adar and his orcs are this close to getting it. They're this close to going, we don't actually need to do this.
Yeah.
Especially because like Galadriel told him, like, you can take your army away. Like, yes, we need to do something about Sauron, but you are delivering your army right into his plan, you idiot.
Well, I mean, he's doing this for the same reason that she was doing it last season.
Right.
It's trauma, just fucking, just a lifetime, I'm sure, at least, a lot of time of trauma and just like being hurt and feeling like if I do this one thing, I can fucking make all the pain go away. I can make up for all of it, all the suffering and everything. It's like, she learned that's not the case.
And she learned from Sauron, because of what happened with Sauron. She's trying to impart that onto him and seeing how hard it is to impart that onto someone who doesn't want to believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, in a perfect world, he would go, okay, Gil-galad, Elrond, take your elves into Eregion and sort your own shit out and bring me Sauron's head in a pike. And we'll be squaresies.
Yep.
But he can't do that because he doesn't have the social skills to do that.
Well, he wants revenge on the elves too.
Like, people try to stop her too.
Yeah.
She's like, that's the thing. Social skills or not, trauma can kind of fucking just, overpower that.
Yeah, and he's got a beef with the elves too. So but he can't let it aside long enough to deal with the bigger problem.
Well, he sort of can't. He offered them an alliance.
Yeah.
He basically said, I'm going to take the city. You can take it with me, or you can go about, or you can be destroyed along the way. So up to a point, he was willing to.
He was willing to.
Yeah. But he's too focused on revenge.
Right.
For, because originally he thought he killed Sauron the first time.
Right.
Because Sauron was oppressing his people. And now he's doing the same thing that Sauron did.
Right.
Because once he found out Sauron was still alive, he just forgot about everything else.
Right.
He forgot about nation building and
don't become the monster you hate kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very, to go back to Tolkien's Christian themes, it's kind of on brand that someone who can't move on, who can't let the divine handle that part of it, falls to sin like Adar is about to.
Yeah. I can see that.
Can we well, is there anything else you wanted to definitely make sure to touch on with this episode before what other things you want to look at?
The kiss.
Oh, we got to talk about the kiss.
That's been I've seen a huge amount of discourse about that on Threads. I'm not on Twitter anymore.
That's
for
your benefit.
It's blowing up on Threads, and people really, I think, some people anyway, don't really happen there.
Well, explain it.
So,
hit it, Bob.
Well, if you pay attention to what's going on in the scene, it was clearly intended as a ruse.
Yes.
To either distract Adar and make the Adar and the orcs focus on their faces, not their hands, or to get them to look away in discomfort, which is actually what happened.
What happened, yeah.
Because they're all like, oh, okay, this is getting weird. We didn't know they were a couple.
Expressions of intimacy. Yuck.
Yeah, and it was done to slip her the pin that she uses to pick the lock.
Right, because you see him, if you watch the whole scene, when he turns around to like walk towards her, he takes the pin off of his cape there and hides it in his hand.
Yeah.
And then he makes a big dramatic display of kissing her.
And so how are people missing that, though, is what I'm curious about. Like,
I don't know.
I think
you miss things?
I think it's heteronormativity at work.
But it's hetero as fuck.
Yeah, I think people... So it's one of those... It's downstream, I think, of the fact that a lot of people don't understand how Tolkien portrayed intimacy, platonic intimacy, between friends in The Lord of the Rings. This also contributes a lot to arguments about queer readings of The Lord of the Rings. If you read The Lord of the Rings, you'll see same-sex characters, mostly male, or exclusively males, touching one another's hair, kissing each other on the forehead, cradling each other's head in their lap, just openly saying "I love you," and things like this. By most people, I think, anyway, as platonic expressions of male friendship in times of war and so forth. Well, and that's all that was happening in this. Yeah, that's all that was happening in this scene. It was two platonic friends who might never see each other again in a time of war, and Elrond was both conducting a ruse against Adar and the orcs, but also taking the opportunity to say goodbye to his friend because he knows he might never see her again.
Aren't they related? Is it like a mother-in-law relationship there or something?
She's eventually his mother-in-law. He eventually marries her daughter Celebrian.
Okay.
But that
hasn't happened
story,
yet.
And it may never happen in this show. Who knows? Because it wasn't. They're going a lot for both for the book fans and the movie fans, and the movie fans would not know who any of those characters are.
Right.
There was actually a fan theory going around for a while that Mordania was secretly Galadriel's daughter.
Well, that fan theory just took a crash.
Yes, it did. Yes. So I think a lot of people's, regards to the kiss, I think a lot of people's brains broke with that scene because it was a man and a woman kissing each other. Yeah. And the context we are most used to seeing that happen in popular entertainment is romance.
Right.
But if you pay attention to
if it was like just normal for like males to kiss and be intimate in that way, then why wouldn't it be for also males and females, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind the fact these are also elves, and they might have a different
also that he pulls the pin off of his cloak,
right,
and hides it. And while the orcs don't notice that, like we as the audience are supposed to notice, he's about to try and pull a fast one.
Yeah, he turns and faces Galadriel, pulls the pin off of his cloak so that she can see it and we can see it, but the elves didn't. Then he says he wants to say farewell to her because he's not going to give in to Adar's demands. Adar says yes. Then Elrond goes to Galadriel and says, "Forgive me," because he's about to do something. He's about to kiss her without her consent, right?
Right.
When he does that, he slips her the pin, and then when he's done kissing her, the look on her face is like, "What the fuck, bro?"
Right.
What was that all about?
I mean, I don't know. It seems like there must be a good bit of that if there's people upset about it, then they either just watched only the kiss moment on a clip on Twitter or whatever, or they're knowingly grifting based on it. I don't know.
I mean, I haven't seen a whole lot of Chud content about it. I don't really follow their content very closely anymore, but I haven't seen anything downstream reaching me of them complaining about that particular thing. I'm sure that they did, and probably said some things like, "Ooh, gross, he's kissing his mother-in-law."
Right, I've seen that. It's like, well, okay, you idiot. I saw someone say that and just kind of get, laughed at, and I saw someone who like genuinely missed that the clip where he pulled the pin off to hand to her. That like, oh, now that makes sense. He was trying to trick them. That makes sense.
Yeah. If I would fault that scene for one thing, it's not doing a quick cut to a close-up of their hands of him slipping her the pin while he's kissing her.
Right.
But if you watch the full body shot, you can clearly see that happen.
Right.
But they didn't focus on it. So I think people who are just used to seeing men and women only kiss in a romantic context in all other media,
right,
just immediately jump to, oh, that's what's happening here. Where is this coming from?
Right.
Ooh, gross, he's kissing his mother-in-law, and so forth.
And the point is, ew, gross, he's kissing his mother-in-law, because the intimacy is there to distract the orbs. It's that feeling of like, what is he doing, is intentional, because it's supposed to be this intimate moment that will cause people to look away, so that he can do the thing.
His mother-in-law yet. Right. As Morgan has mentioned in this stream in the past, characters do not know what the audience knows. Elrond does not know that he's going to be Galadriel's son-in-law one day.
Right. And
so
this will just
at
be a
this
really
point in time,
funny joke at holiday dinners.
Yeah. But when I saw that scene, I didn't read it as a romantic gesture at all. And then I went on social media and went, what is happening? Did people watch a different show?
Right. What show did you watch? Because I
was just like,
damn, that's hot.
That tracks, Dane. That tracks.
And I was thinking very much about the fact that that's going to be your son-in-law. No, sorry. Made it weird.
You're good at that, boss.
I did want to call attention to this other thing. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, to be fair, they are both hot people. So
they're attractive.
Seeing hot people kiss each other can be distracting regardless of the context.
I want to give a superficial, like completely subjective thing that just like isn't a slight on the show at all, but like it's taken me basically this long to accept this dude as Elrond.
Really?
He looks more like a Hobbit guy to me. Like he would be a Hobbit. You know?
See, I wasn't before they say his name in literally the first episode. I was like, who is this guy? Oh, it's Elrond. Okay. And I think, like, to me, it stuck out because his hair was different. Like, oh, okay, so he's younger. And he's still more, like, it divides him from the rest of the elves. That, like, he visually looks different because he is different.
Well, because he's a half-elf as well.
Right,
I think part of what they're doing with his hair, I think, although Arondir also has short hair.
Right.
But I think it's kind of racial coding a little bit, that they're... setting Elrond apart from the other elves because he's not a pure blood elf.
Right.
Oh, another thing, speaking of Arondir, I said watching this episode, my girlfriend agreed. Arondir, cooler than Legolas now. Just cooler than Legolas.
He's great.
Yeah. He talks more. He certainly talks more than Legolas did in the movies anyway.
Legolas seemed to always kind of be like a little bit concerned that he looks really pretty. I know that's just kind of an elf thing in general, but Arondir, I
think that's more of an Orlando Bloom thing than an elf.
Yeah.
That's the actor influencing the character.
This season, Arondir hasn't really had much of a story.
No. Just hanging out.
And that's part of the consequence of them fridging Bronwyn, for which I'm almost forgiven them, but not quite. Because
at least if they're going to fridge her, at least they didn't make it a big deal that's big part of the season that he's going to be, on his revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.